Hello, everybody. Thanks for waiting. I understand from questions we've had a couple of issues with the toll-free number, so we've posted an answer to have people use computer audio. Hopefully, everybody's able to join that way. My name is Tom Frischello, and I'll be presenting the new DIR CT Interactive Reports today. We also got online Stephanie, Amanda, and Mike to help answer any questions that we have on these reports. So to get things started, I thought I'd first pull up the DIR XL comparison reports upon which the new reports are based, quickly go through them in case anyone's unfamiliar with these reports. Along the way, if you have questions, please use the questions feature within GoToMeeting, and we can field those as we progress. But by way of quick introduction, I've pulled up a test copy of the facility comparison report from 2018 quarters 3 and 4. There are many different tabs within this report, but its ultimate design is to take a facility's data and compare it to all sites within the registry for the time period, as well as different peer groups that share characteristics like the same census division, et cetera. I'll take a quick look at one of the tabs in here. So here we're looking at size-specific dose estimates per scan. And to run through the columns quickly, the report is by short name, which is slightly different than RPID. A short name may be comprised of one RPID or several. In some cases, we've combined multiple RPIDs into one group or short name because they're almost identical in nature, or because they're close enough that we can combine them and therefore get robust data for comparison purposes. Oh, sorry. I want to go on mute. I don't know if that's music we're getting. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's better. Also included is body part in the next column, and then DIR standing, which is a comparison metric. I'll come back to that one very quickly. And then the statistics for the site, number of exams, and then the doses that were in the by percentile. So, in the 5th percentile, this facility of its 11 exams, doses were 5% of those 11 exams had a dose value of 2 or less. And on the other end of the extreme, on the 95th percentile, 95% of those 11 exams had a dose of 18 or less. And then the same kind of statistics for the registry, that's under the all DIR sites, and other comparison groups off to the right. And then the DIR standing column does a comparison of the facility to the entire registry. So using the median, we compare the median value, and if it's below the 25th percentile for the registry, it gets marked in blue, as this observation has. So median value of 6 is below the registry's median value of 8. And so that's a way to highlight outliers. The end of the extreme, if you're above the 75th percentile, that's a much higher dose. 75% of the exams for the entire registry had a dose value of 19. We can see in this column off to the right here, whereas the median value for this one facility was 19. So half the exams had a value of 19. Keep in mind, this is only one exam, but this is a way to flag outliers by comparing the facility to the registry. So that, in a nutshell, is the intent of the report and the essence of it. There's many different tabs. There's a tab by body part. There's 6 different tabs to show what I just showed you, but by the different DIR measures. There's another 6 tabs for showing the facility's data over time, going back to the earliest data available. And then a couple of lookup tabs that help you see for each of those short name descriptions, what are the RPIDs that were used to create that, and for each facility, what were the study descriptions that they created exam name mappings for. So which study descriptions make up each RPID, and then which RPIDs were used to create each short name. Okay. So a couple of questions posted here. First one, why were the DIR executive summaries moved to the corporate level? I think I might need a little bit more detail on that. Stephanie or Amanda, if you guys know, please jump in.
What was the question, Tom?
Why were the DIR executive summaries moved to the corporate level? So I think that means maybe you can only access them through the corporate account.
They're not a facility. They're not necessarily a facility level report, but they were moved to both. You can access that report at both the corporate account level and the facility level. And why that is, I'm not 100% sure, but if you send a ticket to the NRDR support at acr.org, we'll be happy to find the answer for you.
Okay, another question about exam name mappings. Yes, there are resources to help explain how that works. And Stephanie, I believe we've got a webinar coming up on that topic.
Oh yeah, we have a webinar coming up on July 11th to review the DIR exam name mapping, and we will be sending you out an email probably this afternoon.
Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm going to pivot now to a quick summary of what I'm going to share with you today in terms of improvements made to the Excel versions of the reports. There's also some general improvements, which I'll go over as well. So for the new version of these Excel reports, the first key thing to note is rather than having the reports published on a quarterly basis, so only 4 times a year, data will be refreshed daily. So each time you open the report on another day, you're going to be seeing the latest information available to you for your facility for comparison purposes. The second key point is the comparison data. So when you're comparing your facility to the entire registry or other peer groups, that time frame is now going to be fixed, and it'll be a 6-month semi-annual period. And when we launch the reports next month, that'll be 2018 quarters 3 and 4. Previously, each time you downloaded a different Excel report, you'd be seeing your facility's data and the registry's data for that same time period. Here, we're going to fix that point in time, and if you look at your data from 2016, you're going to be comparing it to 2018 quarters 3 and 4. The reason for that is we want to use the latest best practices, with the assumption that things are improving over time for the registry overall, and everybody who's participating. So we always want to compare our facilities data with the latest data for the registry overall. Then the last point, we're going to consolidate things down to just 3 total reports and only 3 tabs each, rather than the 15 I showed earlier. The first 2 of these reports are actually going to be to help folks who are used to taking the Excel reports and pulling that data into their own kind of tool, whether it's Excel or some other reporting format. So they'll be in a downloadable friendly CSV structure that'll look similar to what the Excel reports look like today. The third report, this DIR CT Facility Comparison Report, will be designed to focus more on the interesting information by using visual representations, not just numbers in a table, and give you the ability to drill down from something that looks interesting at an aggregate level to see the individual exams and even pinpoint, the specific study date, time, ID for outlier exams, should you want to do that. Okay, as I go through demonstrating these, you'll see some other improvements that are being made in general. The first big one is that aggregate reports are now going to be centralized into a single menu option across all registries. So rather than having to go find your executive summary or quarterly report for CTC in that registry and then do the same thing for grid by looking in that registry, there'll be a single aggregate reports menu. Second, when you open one of these interactive reports, you'll see that it opens in a new browser window. So if you've got pop-ups, blockers in place, you'll need to remove those. But that'll create a much bigger canvas to make it easier to see everything in the report. And then finally, we've put in some additional help items in the reports, including tooltips for each page, so that if you have questions about what you're seeing or how to do something, you'll have that at your fingertips rather than having to open up a knowledge base article to understand what you're looking at. Okay, so with that, I'll now pivot over to the actual demo. Okay, so I've got to take a second to log in. And while I'm doing that, Stephanie, Amanda, let me know if there are any questions that come up.
Tom, one question did come up about the comparison. Will it remain 2018 Q3, Q4? And I did respond with our conversation the other day that it is going to be like that for some time.
Okay. All right, so logged in here. I'm going to start with the download reports, and those are available under that new reports menu I talked about, the aggregate reports. So you can see here this is a new link under facility management because it's going to be general to a facility, and all the registries will have reports available under it. I'll select my test site. And there are two sections, the published aggregate reports. These are the PDF and Excel files that are periodically produced, and you can see there's some LCSR and CTC reports here. And then there's a second section specific to these new reports that I'm showing. The first two are the ones I'm demoing today for the corporate Excel report and facility Excel report. These are interactive in the sense that you'll be able to manipulate the data that you see to download specific things. We kept them here under aggregate reports, though, since this is where people have gone historically to find these Excel reports. The third report is specific to the DIR menu, and it appears with the other interactive reports, so we'll see that third. So I'll start with the facility Excel report. That's the one that's similar to what I showed you in Excel. And the first thing that you see is a About This Report tab, similar to what's been in Excel, just giving you some general background about what's in the report and some of the fields. And then we have 3 tabs: DIR measures, trend data, and the lookups tab. So I'll start with the measures tab. And some of the new formatting that we're including, I mentioned some online or kind of built-in help information. So if you hover over this eye, you get a tooltip that gives you some info on how to generate the report by selecting a facility, how to use some of the different filters, how to decode what's in the DIR standing column. At the bottom, how to download the data. So as we come across questions and find people need more information, we can just add it directly here. If you still want to go out to the knowledge base and read about the report in more detail, you can click on this link, and that'll take you directly to the knowledge base article. So I'll pull up some test data. And one of the things you'll notice about this report is typically it'll take 20, maybe 30 seconds to load. It loaded very quickly here because it's still in my computer's memory. But again, this is going out and grabbing live data, and for each exam, it's taking the RPID, mapping it to a short name, doing all the statistical calculations. So don't be surprised if it takes longer to load. So I'll read through what we're showing here and then show some of the functionality. This is one measure, CTD eyeball per scan, for a selected facility, and it's being compared to all DIR sites and only one other peer group. In this case, by default, it's sites that have the same location type of metropolitan. We did not include all of the other peer groups automatically because that's a lot more data and would just increase the amount of time that you had to wait. The most important comparison data is the registry data, and then if you want one other additional one, you can select that as well. And we're looking at data for this facility for 2018 Q1, and it's being compared to all DIR sites and the peer group data from 2018 Q3 and 4. It's by body part, short name. For age group, we've now put all age groups into one report. Previously, you had separate Excel reports for pediatric versus adult exams. And then here's that DIR standing column, although this time instead of words, you're getting a code value. And this is actually a requirement for the corporate report, which I'll show next, but we wanted to be consistent between the two. We had to use a numerical value. And so to decode this, you can look at the little help here and see that 25 means the facility median is below the 25th percentile. That first row in this report that I was showing has a -9, and that indicates that the registry doesn't have enough data to do a meaningful comparison. It either has fewer than 100 exams or it might have fewer than 10 facilities. So no comparison is being made. Okay. And then we have the data for the facility, the count, the percentiles, registry, and then the peer group. To download this report, it's the same as other interactive reports. In the lower right here is the download icon. You click on that. If, as it's happened here, you see that the crosstab option is not highlighted, cancel, and then click anywhere above the column headers here. So I just clicked in that empty space, and now the crosstab is available. That's a quirk of the software. When you first open the report, it literally doesn't know what it is that you want to download. And so by clicking just above the column headers there, it says, oh, okay, I understand, it's that table. Now you can create your crosstab. Click on crosstab, and it downloads a CSV file, which you can open into Excel. Doesn't have all the pretty formatting, but it has the same data, particularly the count of exams and the percentiles. There are a few extra columns that are required to give this report some of its interactive functionality, but the core data from the Excel report is still in here. Okay. As far as some of the functionality and things that you can change, you'll see the titles here have some items in blue, and those are some of the different filters that you can change. So certainly you can change the DIR measure. That's this filter right here. You can change the study year. And then you can change the time periods. By default, it pulls up data by quarter, but if you wanted to look at things semi-annually, you can check that as your time period, and then this next filter can no longer be quarters. It automatically has you choose between January through June or July through December, or you could look at things by month if you want to get to that level of detail and pick a particular month. You can pick one of the different peer groups. If you wanted to look at things by census division, it would show you in that far right set of columns. This is now data for all sites within the South Atlantic Division. And then you can aggregate by short name by default, or if you wanted to roll things up and just see them by body part, we can do that on the fly. So if we go back, oops, sorry about that. We have here for abdomen 29 exams. 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 4 is 7, plus 22 is 29. You could just roll that up by body part, and the short name field will go blank. We'll have one row for abdomen, and there's all 29 exams. So if you just wanted to do a higher level comparison, you can do that. And then filter by short name or by body part. For age group, we kept the filters at the group level of adult versus pediatric because that's historically the way the Excel reports were produced. Okay. Next tab is the trend data. So this is data just for the facility. There's no comparisons being made, and it's in reverse chronological order. Right now we're looking at month detail. So we're 2018 October, goes all the way back to whatever is the earliest time period available. So we have data going back to July 2011. And so you can do that by month, by quarter, or by semi-annual periods as well. One thing to note is that if there happens to be a month where there are no exams with, for any of the short name values, you don't have a column that's blank. So we have data here for August of 2018, and then you see the next month is January of 2018. That's because in this test data set, there was nothing for any of those short names in between. So just something to watch out for, especially if you're going to try to look at things by month. And then to finally wrap things up with that last tab, I'm going to go to it from this main page. If you're wondering, gee, what are the RPIDs that make up this CT abdomen pelvis exam, you can select that row and then use this look up short name link, and it will take you to that last tab and focus in just on that one particular exam. Here's the short name as it appears in the report. Here's the age groups that are available for the facility. For this facility, its statistics are comprised of RPID 152. The exam name mapping that the facility used is this study description is what it's mapped to 152. But when you look at the statistics in the registry column for all DIR sites, it's made up of not only RPID 152, but also 1088. And that's because these are very similar exams. And again, it gives us more robust data at the registry level with which to make comparisons. So a dynamic lookup feature to help you understand what makes up a particular short name. Okay. All right. Yep, go ahead.
We go over a few questions relating to what you're going over.
Sure.
A couple people are asking, are they no longer going to see data for different age groups?
No, you will have, or rather, yes, you will still see data for different age groups. I think in the sample data set here, yeah, we've got a couple. It's just not a robust test data set, but you can see there's a pediatric age group of 15 to 18. And it's also worth mentioning, we're changing the way that we format these age groups in interactive reports. So you'll see this rolled out later. But we added this Y so that when you download this into Excel, previously, the age group 3-6, Excel would interpret that to mean March 6th and actually show it as a date. So we've added this Y to the end of that age group so that Excel knows that you're talking about a text field, not a date field. And if you wanted to see just the pediatric exams, I can change that filter. And here we have all the pediatric age groups.
Thanks, Tom. Mike, several people also want to know, should their facility be concentrated on the ranking to be in the 25th or the 75th percentile?
And what if there's no number under the ranking? What does that mean?
So, Tom, I might need you on the no number under the ranking. I'm guessing that maybe no data for the site, or Tom, I don't know if you can take that one, but I'll start with the 25 or 75 percentile. So I'm going to hem and haw a little on this because there's not a straightforward answer. It's not strictly that you can look at that 25, 50, 75. It needs, in general, it would be better to have less exposure, so you'd be towards the 25th. But that needs to be taken into account with also the image quality. So you can't just strictly say, well, I'm at the 25th percentile, therefore I'm doing better. If the images aren't good, then you're really not, producing. The 25th percentile doesn't help you out. So all things being equal, yes, a lower would is better, but it needs to be taken in conjunction with the image that's being produced. I hope that helps answer that question. Tom, do you know I'm thinking the other one is about where under the DIR standing, maybe that there's nothing there. And I think we talked about that yesterday, and that was that for this particular test site, they didn't have patients in that group. Is that right?
Well, for the DIR standing column in particular, if you see data to the right of it, it actually means that the median value fell between the 25th and 75th percentiles. We could put a code value of 50 there to represent that.
Okay.
But I chose to leave it blank. I think we can put that in the tooltip as well. But you see in each of these cases here, so if we take this top row, 8.1 is the median value. That falls between the 25th percentiles of 5.8 and 13.0. So it's kind of in the middle. There's nothing. It's not an outlier, I guess, is the best way for it. Cool. Stephanie, any others? Or Amanda? Sorry.
I think. Let me see. Do you know what it means when the DIR standing is blank? Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yep.
That's okay. And if folks, if things like that become confusing, I would suggest putting in a ticket, and we can use that as a suggestion for a future upgrade. If it would be better to have that as 50 instead of blank. These are types of things that we can address in a future upgrade or modification to the report. So,
yep.
Okay, Tom, I think we're good. Back to you.
Okay. All right, so I've started generating the corporate download report. This one will probably take a bit longer to load just because it hasn't loaded recently. But again, the concept here is to take the corporate account, all the facilities within a single corporate account, and show you data for each of those facilities, show it for the corporate account overall, and then make some comparisons between those groups and the registry for a given time period. Otherwise, the tabs are the same. We've got DIR measures, we'll have a trend tab, and then that short name lookups to find out which RPIDs and exam name mappings were used for the report. Okay. So again, we're starting off looking at CTD eyeball per scan. For our test account, it's being compared to all DIR sites only. We don't have any other peer groups because, you know, in many cases, there are multiple facilities and they may have different location types or different facility types. So it doesn't make sense to do other comparisons. Showing data for quarter 1, 2018 compared to the registry 2018 quarters 3 and 4. By body part, short name, all the various age groups. And then the formatting's changed a little here from what we saw in the facility, in that we're showing the registry data first. And that's for technical requirements because we're going to show all the facilities. Our test data happens to have only one facility. But if we had multiple facilities, we'd be showing all of those and then automatically using the software to total those up to the corporate account level. And we don't want to include this registry data in that total, obviously. But we have the exam count, the percentiles, and then for the facility, the same thing, the exam counts and percentiles and the corporate. And then the DIR standing, which is doing the comparison for each of these groups. And this is where that need to use a code came from, because this is a numerical table. We can't put text values here. We have to put a numerical code to make it work. And so we wanted this to be this, have that be consistent between the facility download report and this report. But otherwise, you know, the meanings are the same. This -9 here means that the registry doesn't have enough data. It's only got 63 exams, which is fewer than the 100 we want. So we're not going to render any comparison here for that one exam. Okay, and otherwise the trend data concept is the same. The way the short name lookups is the same. Here we're just showing data chronologically in reverse chronological order from 2018 quarter 4 going backwards. Okay, and then to download it, again, you can click above the table, click on download, click on crosstab, and that's how you download it. Otherwise, the filters are the same as what we saw previously, so I don't think there's any reason to go into those. And maybe while I'm starting to pull up the other report, Stephanie and Amanda, let me know if there's other questions either on that corporate download or the facility download.
We have a user that is asking, do we have a way to analyze data by scanner?
Yes. So we'll see that in a minute.
Good job.
Okay. So this report I pulled up, actually I should show you quickly. So this appears under the interactive reports section of the DIR menu, because its intent truly is to be more interactive to help you explore the data rather than just download it. So you can pull it into some other tool. So it's the facility comparison report here, which will be the new link that's available. Again, it opens up an About This Report tab, same information as we saw before. And then 3 tabs. One is comparisons, which is similar to what we looked at earlier, exams and trends, and then that short name lookup. So I'll start by pulling the test data. And there are some different, a couple of different filters I'll need to show you that are specific to this report. as well as some visual differences. So I'll start with the table simply because that's the same as, that's probably too big, as what we've been looking at previously. So here's each exam, short name, the age group, the registry information, the 25th percentile, the DIR median or the 50th percentile, 75th percentile, and then the facility data. And here we've limited it just to the number of studies and the median value, which is 38.7, and then did this new calculation, which is the facility median of 38.7 divided by 24.2, which yields 160%. And so that is a kind of a magnitude calculation to give you an idea of just how different is the facility median compared to the registry. Added some color coding, where red means that the facility is above the facility median is above the 75th percentile for the registry, and that's the case here, 38.7 versus 34.7. Green if you're between 25th and 75th, and blue, and there's a few of those at the bottom, if you're below the 25th percentile. And then, because it can be challenging to look at this if you've got several different facilities, I mean, imagine if you had 5, 6 facilities under the same corporate account and a lot more exams. That's a really big table that even with color coding and sorting can be difficult to find out, which is the biggest outlier. We've got a scatter plot to graphically show that. In this plot on the y-axis, this is simply the facility median. So the higher the dose, the higher up the y-axis you're going to be, which isn't the most important thing. There can be legitimate reasons. You might need higher doses for certain exams. But this x-axis is this metric in this last column. So if the facility median is exactly the same as the entire registry, it's going to appear on this vertical line. If it's less than the registry median, it's going to be to the left. And if the facility is higher, it's going to be off to the right. And so now you can very quickly pick the outliers, like this one little red dot in the upper right, and see that's the interesting one. And you can hover over it and get the specifics about which exam, which age group, the number of exams, and then some text to describe that calculation I mentioned earlier about how we get the 160%. The size of each of these marks corresponds to the number of exams. So the ones with the highest number of observations appear bigger. So our biggest one is 630. Here's another one that's 587. And the smaller ones, only 31. And then you can interact with this. You can highlight only the marks that are above the 75th percentile. It'll also flag that row and column in the table, or the ones that are between, or the ones that are below. You can do the same thing with the chart itself. Just click on that one mark, and now you've flagged, oh, here's the row that I'm talking about. Okay, so that's a way to quickly get at the information that's maybe more useful. To show how this might really look, I can set this filter to 1. By default, this display exams with n greater than or equal to is a way of limiting the information to only a certain, to exams that have only a certain number of observations. So by default, it's 25. I can set it to 1 to see everything and see some exams that have very small numbers, but you can see already you've got a picture here that shows a lot of information, but here's the stuff you really care about, maybe for high doses, or if you're worried about, gee, is your image quality suffering because you're significantly lower than the registry? You can see all the other outliers to the right. Another feature in the filters here that's different than the other reports I showed you is you can dynamically switch between showing data for individual facilities within the corporate account, or you can just say, look, I want to look at the corporate account level only, and select that, and it'll collapse all the facilities and just show corporate account level data. Okay, this second tab, exams and trends, this is where we get to drill down to specifics as well as pull out and see the long-term trends. I clicked on it, even though you're not supposed to do that, because this is going to be the natural, intuitive thing people want to do, is to click on that tab and see something, and it's going to be blank. And that's because the only way to get there is by selecting a single short name and age group from the comparisons tab, so you can drill down and see something. And we had to make that the requirement because otherwise there'd be far too much data to represent on a single page. So if I go back to this first page and say I want to look at these 31 exams, where the facility's median is 160% of the registry. When I hover over that, I have two options. One is to look up the short name values, the RPIDs for the short name, and the other is to drill to individual exams. So when I click on that, it now brings me over to this tab, and here I can see both the detail and the big picture. This first chart is the detail. This is a scatter plot of each individual exam, all 31 of them, for this exam group and time period. And you can see, even though we'd asked to see 2018 quarter 3 data, it's showing us data for just August through September, because that was all that was available. There were no studies in July for this particular short name. In the chart, you see these different shapes. These correspond to scanner. And so this is where, if you want to start looking at things by scanner, this is a way to do it. If you found an outlier, you can say, gee, is it one particular scanner or another? Back up a second and explain the colors here. Within this chart, we've got the registry 95th percentile. Below that is the 75th percentile, and you can see there's some color differences there, so you can very quickly find marks that are above the 95th percentile or between the 75th and 95th percentile for the registry, so really on the high end of the dose compared to all DIR sites. And then there's this dotted line. This is the median value for the exam we picked. So recall 38.7 is what we saw on this first tab. Come back here, so 38.7. But if I'm concentrating on a particular scanner, say I select this scanner, you can see that line moves. And now it's showing me, here's the median value for just this one scanner, and it is in fact much different, much higher than the overall median value across all scanners. You can also do some drill down. So you can highlight this scanner, and you've got a little menu here to keep only or exclude. If you say keep only, it'll get rid of all the other marks in this chart. And that's particularly helpful if you've got 200, 300 different exams on one page. To undo that, there's an undo button in the lower left corner. You can do the inverse. You can say, show me everything except this one. And now it's gone and everybody else remains. Note that those actions don't change anything in this bottom chart. This bottom chart is the long-term trend, all data available for this short name and age group. In this case, it goes back to quarter 3 of 2011, all the way up through 2018 quarter 3. And it's got the same registry statistics for comparison purposes, so that you can look and see how things changed over time relative to the registry overall. And then I forgot. So for each of these marks, you may have seen information pop up that allows you to get to very specific information about what this exam is, what the RPID is, exam date and time, age, things that you can use to pinpoint, where did this outlier come from, lateral thickness, effective diameter, et cetera. Okay. Otherwise, the short name lookups, this is the same functionality I showed before. You can just drill to see what are the individual RPIDs that make up a short name. You don't have to drill to it. You can go directly to that tab if you want and see all of them at once. But otherwise, I think that should be it, at least in terms of what I've prepared to show. Stephanie, Amanda, any other questions to field?
So what we're going to do now, since we have a few minutes left, is we're going to allow you to ask Tom a question. If you have we're going to do it on a first come basis. So raise your hand if you have a question, and we'll unmute you so that you can ask Tom directly. Sherry, you're unmuted. You can go ahead and ask Tom your question. Hello?
While we're waiting, I was looking through the questions. I did see a couple of requests to clarify what is meant by the different percentiles here. So using this first row as an example, the DIR 25th percentile is 2.0. That means for CTD eyeball across scans, for CT chest, 25% of these 332 exams had a dose value of 2 or less. And then for median, half of the 332 exams had a dose value of 3.3, and 75% of those 332 exams had a dose value of 5.6.
George, Howard, we're trying to unmute you, but it doesn't appear that you've entered your PIN.
So while we're waiting for them to enter their PIN numbers, we'll go ahead and ask Tom a few more of your questions that we have in queue. Tom, can the exams and trends tab show a scanner-wise median or percentile information compared to DIR data instead of a few instances in timeline? Shamali, if you could send us that question, I don't think he has the time to get into that fully. If you could send that question to nrdrsupport.acr.org, we will forward it to Tom and get an answer for you. Next question. Under the trends, if I modify to see a single report on a scanner and download it, will that information filter automatically?
I believe the answer is yes. We can actually try that. Let me pull up this one, but it should do that. So let's pick one of these scanners. And this is the chart that's highlighted. So I should really get a crosstab. Oops, it's not highlighted. Let's try that. See if we get 5 rows. Perhaps not. Oh, it's because it's got every single date in here. The other way we can try it is data. Yeah, so it looks like the answer is no, but actually this is a highlight. So the other option is to keep only. I think that was actually what the questioner had asked.
And Tom, could you just confirm again when these reports will be available to the user?
The planned launch is mid-August.
Okay.
So in this crosstab version, this is essentially a filter if you say keep only. So it will, when you go to download it, whether you use the crosstab function or in this case, I think data is more useful. You can see it's restricted the data to just those 5 exams for that one scanner. So as long as you're filtering, you're not just highlighting, use this keep only and then do a download, then yes.
You ready for the next one?
Yep, go ahead.
It says our RSO wants just a very high-level report from us showing how many exams were performed on the CT scanner, and of those, how many exams triggered a high-dose alert, and what was typed in by the tech to bypass the alert, i.e. large patient. Is there any very high-level report that would show us this data?
How about the high-dose alert?
This is about as detailed of a report that we currently have. Is that not correct?
Well, actually, I was about to pivot over to the standardized dose index reports, just because not everybody may be familiar with the scanner box plot. Maybe they are, and it's just not meeting the need because that high dose alert, I think, is the thing that's not available. But in terms of looking at things by scanner, this is another option because you can see things for each individual scanner as well as drill down by scanners. I need to go back. There we go.
Is this new report? I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I was also going to say it also can do comparisons to the registry. So here we've got every single scanner in this one facility. Each of them has their own box plot. If we picked a particular RPID, I'm just going to randomly pick one, and we can apply the registry statistics for that RPID and flag cases where the scanner is above or below the registry. So 14.9. And the highlighting has got to be turned on. Let's see, registry statistics. So we'll compare it to the 75th percentile. So here's a case where you're looking at things by scanner, and there's one scanner that is above the registry the 75th percentile of the registry. Granted, just looks like it's only 1 or 2 exams, but this is probably the closest thing that we would have to what the questioner was asking.
Okay. Is this new report better to use than the original DIR report?
That's a subjective question I can't answer. I think so, but I mean, that's really the important question for the audience.
What is the impact of DIR standing?
I'd say that the two impacts, the two questions that you're trying to answer are, if you're above the 75th percentile, is there something you can change to lower the dose without sacrificing image quality? That could be simply dosing changes. It could be technology changes. Newer scanners, I imagine, require less dose for quality. If you're below the 25th percentile, make sure that your image quality isn't suffering. That I think becomes the key question. Mike, I don't know if there's anything that you might want to add there.
No, I don't think I have any. If you need some more detailed information on that, I would, again, send in a ticket. We can, the medical physicist on site that we can ask him for his opinion on that and get you some more, professional answer on that.
Also, Chad, your question is probably for our physicist as well, Chad Dillon. So if you would pose that question to us by submitting a ticket to nrdrsupport.acr.org, we will forward it to our physicist and have him try and get that answer for you as well. Tom, we have a question. Since this pulls information daily, can email alerts be set up for dose thresholds? That's not anything that Tom would be. No one in this room can respond to that. You can send us the question, and we could forward the question to our management staff and let them make that determination.
I think out of the box, just to add on there, out of the box, Tom, we don't have any email alerts tied into this right now, correct?
No, that's not something we've built into the report.
Yeah. So then, like Stephanie was saying, we can look in to see if that's a functionality that we could develop in the future. But the short answer to the questioner at this point, the answer is no. Maybe in the future we can look in to see if that's something that multiple folks are interested in which case maybe we can add that as a future enhancement.
And I forgot that management was in the room. So. That was Mike. He's our director, and so there you have it. Next question for you, Tom. The registry statistics are available per RPID, but some are really similar: CT abdomen versus CT abdomen with or CT abdomen without. Is there a way to combine RPIDs? I think Tom went over that a little bit in the beginning of the webinar. He explained that sometimes we do use one RPID for similar study names. But Tom, if you can expound on that a little bit, kind of like.
Yeah, I guess there's two different ways that we've kind of grouped things. One is the cases where there's a single short name here in which we've combined like items. I'm looking to see if we can have CT abdomen added to this mix. And so we've been able to consolidate some of the RPIDs into one, although maybe not necessarily to the level of detail that the person was asking. So you can see we've left CT abdomen with IVCon and without IVCon separate, because with or without contrast may make a difference. But we combine, there is a short name that's got both of them together, so you can see all three different permutations. So one way, we've combined some RPIDs into these short name groups. The second way is, well, if you just want to look at abdomen exams overall, you can change this report to calculate things by body part rather than short name. And now you've got just all the data for abdomen. So I think those are probably the two most meaningful ways of combining things that we have.
All right, we're gonna unmute. Oh, she just went away. Okay. Let me see if anyone else.
So we have time to ask one more question. If we did not or were not able to get to your question today, or you felt that you wanted us to expand on it a little more, submit your question to us, and we will get you the right response from one of the team members in the NRDR Registries Department. But our final question is, can the topograms be shown for the outliers? For instance, for an outlier with 75th percentile CTI vol, if the facility is sending topograms?
I don't believe so. It's not in my developer's understanding of the data available. That might be a question we have to take back to Cal.
Yeah, and if we're here to help, so if there's something that we can help you investigate, specifically around some data that you're seeing in your report, you please do reach out to us, and like Stephanie says, we'll route it to the right person, with the expertise that can hopefully give you some assistance. So, Tom is doing the reports, developing them, but truthfully, the radiologist, the physiologist here would be maybe able to answer some of these more clinical, technical questions better than those that are in the room right now.
Right. So that is the conclusion of our webinar. We do thank you and appreciate you all for joining us. Just as a reminder, we will have another webinar on August 11th covering the DIR exam name mapping, and we will consider your feedback to determine whether or not we need to cover this information again. And with that being said, have a safe and happy 4th of July weekend.